Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to what are the 11 mega regions of the United States. When it comes to mega regions, I'm thinking of things like, is New England a mega region? Or the Deep South? Although the Deep South seems a bit too big to be a mega region, but I'm assuming it's places like that. The Midwest, but I don't know if there's more specific ones that it will sort of go into. Like, I feel like New England's a guarantee to be one, but I don't actually know, to be honest. So yeah, we're just gonna check this out. I don't even know how important this is in terms of like people that live in the US. Are mega regions even really viewed as a thing? I guess if it is stuff like New England or the Deep South or just the South or whatever, then I guess maybe it is. But I don't know. But we're gonna check this out. Hopefully, going to enjoy. Links are in the description to my Patreon, where you can see reactions that I can't post to YouTube, movies, TV series, all things posted for the last 3 years. And continuing to be posted there that I can't post to YouTube. Yeah, links are there for those who care for it. But if not, let's check this out and see these mega regions and learn about, I guess, these areas. And I assume how they're sort of culturally similar. But yeah, let's check this out and see.
Coming up soon about the mega region that Portugal is beginning to form, stretching along the country's coast and practically connecting Lisbon and Porto through suburban areas. As an example, in that video, I mentioned other mega regions throughout the world. Many
Oh, so mega regions would be like cities that are connected. So to think of one, it would be like Baltimore and DC, right? Because I swear they were two cities, but they are like they're getting connected because there's no like area between them. There's just a gap. I feel like they're very close to each other now because of the cities both being built up like loads and loads, and just getting bigger and bigger, etc.
of which being in the US. There's 11 of them, and within them live a crazy.
Okay, so I was wrong with my guess at the start. But yeah, you're seeing this here. I mean, this is like the Baltimore region, right? Baltimore, DC region, or around here.
78% of the US's total population. That's almost 260 million people. So in this video, we're going to take a look
No,
at
I've got
those.
hiccups. I hate having hiccups in videos, man.
First, as a reminder, what is a megaregion? A megaregion, also called a megalopolis or supercity, is a set of metropolitan areas which are perceived as a continuous urban segment because they grow so much that they reach into each other. People from each can work and or live in neighboring connected cities, and so they consequently share systems of transportation, an economy, resources, and many other things. It's interesting because its predecessor, metropolis, referred precisely to a similar thing, but at a smaller scale. The 1832 definition describes its meaning as a very large, heavily populated urban complex. While a metropolis perhaps connects smaller urban areas into a big one, a megalopolis connects several metropolises themselves together. And this happens a lot across the United States. This fantastic map, which due to not being available in vector format, I had to recreate manually for the thumbnail of the video, shows us which they are, each a colored group.
But it says these are megatropolises or whatever. But you see this, for example, this Texas one here. I don't know in terms like how big this would be. I'm gonna say it's like the size of Wales. And you've got what, 2 major cities, and then 2 medium-sized cities, and then 3 smaller cities or big towns. I mean, they are these like Houston and what's the other big city in Houston and Dallas. So these two, they are quite far apart, aren't they? This is probably the distance between like London. I'm gonna just say London and not Manchester. Maybe like Edinburgh. Maybe Manchester. I'm just say Edinburgh. You know what? I'm gonna say Edinburgh. Probably wrong. It actually might be the distance between London and Edinburgh, and in terms of that, they are quite far apart to be considered a mega region. But maybe in terms of the US, it's a lot different like that. Because in this case, and maybe just the whole of the UK is a mega region or a megatropolis because the cities are so close,
as well as their respective populations, how big the circles within them are. Some areas such as Florida's or Texas are contained within their own states, but most of them cross state borders into their neighbors, such as the Great Lakes or the Northeast, with some even crossing international borders like Cascadia in the Pacific Northwest, reaching into Canada, or the Gulf Coast in the Mexican Gulf, reaching into Mexico itself. So first let's go through the map and list out these megaregions of the US, learning where they are, and then we will learn a little more about each of them. Now, before we keep going, a quick word from today's sponsor.
Secure that bag. Secure that money.
And create up to 4 videos, but with a watermark. If you want to remove the watermark, you can upgrade to a paid plan, which starts as low as $20 a month using the link in the description. Now, back to the video. Let's start it alphabetically since we need an
Wait, is that an AI? Is that an AI video editing thing? I might have to check that out. I'm not gonna lie.
First, here in blue in the south within the state of Arizona, we have the adequately called Arizona Sun Corridor, which briefly extends into Mexico. Then the Cascadian megaregion, which according to this map includes these very distant cities in neighboring interior states, but excludes others like Boise in Idaho. We'll learn more about why and what's included in each further ahead. This one includes Washington's coast, as well as the northern coast of Oregon, and stretches into Canada too, with Vancouver and Victoria. Next, we have the Florida megaregion, which does not cover the entire state, excluding the Panhandle and several mostly rural counties to its east, but almost all of the entire state is included. And this is a good moment to point something out that may be obvious but needs pointing out due to the way the map is made. Not all of this purple area is a city, otherwise Florida's peninsula would just be one giant urbanization. Cities are these areas in white with a circle.
This is kind of crazy that this is all going along the coast. It's nearly all the way up the coast. Obviously there's gaps, but between like here is all the way down here. That's got to be over 100 miles plus of just coastline civilization
Around them. The purple connecting the areas consist of their connections and shared infrastructure. After that, in the western USA, we have the Front Range megaregion, which stretches across 3 states. Vertically, the northern end of this megaregion starts in the Colorado-Wyoming area and moves down along the eastern face of the Rocky Mountains to the range's southernmost extent in New Mexico, incorporating the Santa Fe and Albuquerque metropolitan areas. Moving to one of the biggest megaregions in the US and the world, we have the Great Lakes megaregion, which extends into Canada as well. In fact, this area of Canada is the most populous in the country, with half of its population living there. Within the US, it includes Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan, but also stretches into Pennsylvania, western New York, and even small parts of Kentucky, Missouri, Iowa, or Minnesota. Back in the south, the Gulf Coast megaregion covers precisely most of the US's Mexican Gulf Coast, its southern coast, reaching into northeast Mexico. It covers the entirety of the coastal areas of Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi, even reaching slightly into Florida's Panhandle. It's also the only case where 2 megaregions intersect in Houston, Texas, which belongs to both. It intersects precisely with the Texas Triangle, which forms a triangle, and for some reason includes the geographically detached Oklahoma City Tulsa Metropolitan Corridor in Oklahoma. And next we have the Northeast megaregion, the United States' original megalopolis.
See, this one is one that you're like, okay, yeah, this is crazy, because it is all more or less connected from Boston to like New York, and then you're going down here. There's about 4 major cities here. Well, there's probably more actually. It's just low, and it's obviously close to the one that we've just seen over here. So yeah, this region, in terms of like just like the cities so close to each other, or major cities, no, maybe not even close to each other, but just because they've expanded so much, they do look so close to each other.
Since it was the first one, it's sometimes called the Boston-Washington Corridor because it stretches from Massachusetts through New York City to Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. Moving to the west coast, there's the Northern California megaregion around San Francisco, San Jose, and Sacramento, which slightly stretches into Nevada by including their portion of Lake Tahoe. California has another megaregion in the south, the last on our list here, called precisely the Southern California megaregion, bigger than the northern one and existing between Los Angeles and San Diego, stretching into Nevada through the Las Vegas Valley, as well as the Tijuana area in Mexico.
Damn.
And I almost forgot this other one, the Piedmont Atlantic, which stretches from Alabama to northern Georgia and the Carolinas. Those are the 11 megaregions of the US, and like I mentioned at the start, within them live 78% of the country's population. Plus, that's data from 2010, and each of them had projected growths ranging between 9 to 40% by 2025. More recent projections point to these being home to more than 80% of the nation's population and close to 90% of its economy by now. Furthermore, if you look at the map, you can see that many are close to each other, and if they continue to grow and expand, they might intersect and unite amongst them, just like the metropolis.
Fascinated to see how this sort of map would look in like 100 years time, because it would be so much like there'll be so many more that are just intertwined.
United urban areas, and the megalopolis united metropolis maybe will soon have something like Gigalopolis, which united several megalopolis. The Great Lakes are almost meeting with the Northeast and Piedmont Atlantic. The Gulf Coast could soon reach into Floridas, and the two mega regions of California might connect as well. If we go back to that county map, we can see that if we use administrative borders, California's two and the two in the Northeast already connect. So now let's learn a little about each of them individually. The Arizona Sun Corridor had 5.5 million people in 2010. Its 2040 projection is for that value to double to 10 million. It is comparable to the whole state of Indiana in both size and population, which opens up the argument of whether or not a border readjustment should be made, so that these urban centers become their own states and have proportional congressional representation. Its population is composed of 5 metropolitan areas: Phoenix, Tucson, Prescott, Sierra Vista Douglas, and Nogales. This additional map from the RPA's report itself shows us the counties that belong to each megaregion, which provides a more precise view of their boundaries. Cascadia, also known as the Pacific Northwest, exists between the Pacific Ocean and the Rocky Mountains, roughly. Its population was 12.4 million in 2010, and the projection for 2025 is 13.5 million, which is 4% of the country's total. It includes the cities of Abbotsford, Eugene, Portland, Salem, Seattle, Tacoma, Spokane, Vancouver, and Victoria, the last two being in Canada. This zoomed-in map shows us how, despite there being large population concentrations within the city themselves, there's no contiguous mega-urban connection between them, just patches of urbanization and joined infrastructures as a result of their close proximity. Florida's is essentially the whole state minus the Panhandle. Its projected population for 2025 is 21.5 million people, which would equate to 6.4% of the country. The reason why it doesn't expand into the Panhandle is interesting and speaks to the cultural difference that exists between these regions. Alabama has, throughout history, claimed Florida's Panhandle as its own due to cultural proximity. Florida is the only state, perhaps along with New Jersey, where the vast majority or even entirety of their territory is within a megalopolis region. The Front Range, also known as the Southern Rocky Mountain Front, has a population of 5.5 million people, according to the latest data, 1.6% of the US total. There's not much to say about it. They are a set of large cities, united by railway and highways, and they interact closely in their daily life and economy. The Great Lakes are next, and they're really just a gigantic region. In 2010, they had 55.5 million people, and the 2025 projection was 60 million, but now in 2024, they already surpassed it and are at a whopping 85 million inhabitants. That's a quarter, 25% of the entire population of the US. However, this number goes down if you limit the count to those that live in the direct basin or coastline of the lakes themselves, 35 million, but the defined megaregions extend far past that. Its largest metropolitan area is Chicago, with around 10 million people, but the largest city is actually outside the US, in Toronto, Canada, at 2.8 million. Speaking of percentages, as a fun fact, the 5 Great Lakes that give the region its name contain 1/5 of the world's surface fresh water. In the Gulf Coast megaregion, the projection for 2025 is 16 million, almost 5% of the national total. It's hard to find exact counts because when you search for the Gulf Coast, you get the addition of the entirety of all states that have their coast there, not necessarily the megaregion. Northern and Southern California's megaregions have a total of 12.5 and 23.7 million people, respectively, 3.7% and 7% of the US total, respectively, too. In the North, in 2018, the region had a local GDP of 1.2 trillion, 6% of the country's national GDP. In the South, the counties of Los Angeles, San Diego, Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino are the 5 most populous, also in the entire state, and being among the top 15 most populous in the US overall. Piedmont Atlantic includes the Atlanta, Birmingham, Charlotte, Memphis, Nashville, Raleigh-Durham, and Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point metropolitan areas, containing 12% of the country's population. It's currently the fastest growing megaregion in the US, which is creating problems due to its unprepared infrastructure. They are a subset of the culture of the southern United States, and mainly a combination of the cultures of Georgia and North Carolina, as these two states have the greatest populations of the region, which brings about an interesting topic of how certain states' cultures might begin to merge, prioritizing those that are most relevant within the megaregions. Moving to the northeast Atlantic coast, we have the Northeast megaregion. It extends from Massachusetts in the north to Washington, D.C. in the south, going through and connecting many of the U.S.'s most populated cities, such as New York City, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. 2010 figures pointed to already 50 million living there, over 17% of the country's total, in an area that is equivalent to under 2% of the total territory.
Damn.
Many people in this megaregion live in one city and work in another due to the close connections between them. And finally, the Texas Triangle. It contains the state's four largest cities: Austin, Dallas-Fort Worth, Houston, and San Antonio. Its 2020 population estimate was 20.8 million, 6.2% of the country. Interestingly, the Texas Triangle can be considered one of the more politically left-wing areas in Texas due to the anchoring cities and the fact that urban centers tend to lean more Democrat in recent elections. In addition to these, there are also other major cities and major urban areas that aren't considered megaregions by the Regional Plan Association, who made the map they used here. They are the American Southwest around El Paso in Texas, Hawaii around Honolulu and its suburbs, Kansas around Wichita, Missouri around Springfield, the Mississippi Valley across many states that the river travels through, Kentucky connecting Lexington, Fayette, Richmond, and Frankfort, and the South Atlantic coast, as well as upstate New York. Why they were left out is unclear, but the obvious reasons would be that they aren't big enough or that they're a large set of urban regions, but without the same type of shared infrastructure or common policies. So, those are the megaregions of the United States. Do you live in any of them? Have you ever visited? And what do you think about this topic? Do you agree with the criteria?
I think it's a bit of a weird topic because some of them are quite far apart. I said at the start, this is probably the distance between London and Edinburgh. It's probably not that far. London and Manchester, maybe. Yeah, I say London and Manchester. Even then, maybe not. I think it would be because the UK wouldn't go up to like here on the US map. See, I'd say it's like the distance between London and Manchester. And when you think about it like that, it's the UK. It's a whole different sort of spectrum. But they're far. They're very far apart. Oh my God, sorry about that. And yeah, I mean, but yeah, in terms of the US, I mean, this region for me is definitely the one that's like, okay, this is just like a long row of cities all together, which is so fascinating because again, this is going to get even crazier in the coming years. But that's pretty much it. Hopefully, you enjoy this reaction. Let me know your thoughts on this. Do you really think this is a thing or not? Is this actually like ever discussed in like cities? Like, did you even know this was a thing? Maybe you didn't. I mean, I didn't to be fair. And when I first got into the video, I was assuming it was to do with like New England and stuff, but it wasn't. So that's that. Hopefully you enjoyed, and until next time, like, subscribe, and peace.